Good Tuesday morning. CeeLo's in here. He's not supposed to be in here. Boomer's not in here. He is supposed to be in here. Yeah, it's post-Super Bowl bliss, baby. Man, I tell you, there is some pressure on us today because we really have been making news here on the Boomer and Geo program for 2 weeks straight now. If you think about it, from Kay Adams grabbing my man boob to Deontay Johnson of the Steelers responding to me saying that he punched Mitch Trubisky in the face, which is something that I heard. And then yesterday we made even more news as we showed up in more articles in the New York Post for a couple of reasons. One, Boomer had the Keith Hernandez story before anybody else. Keith Hernandez returning to SNY in a 3-year deal. He told us that about 24 hours ago. And then Al Duke's tweet about Rihanna smelling her fingers after grabbing her crotch at the halftime show, which is something that Boomer brought up during the program they were taking calls on. That had an article written about it. So there is pressure on us today, Boomer, to keep churning out news because we're not only content creators for WFAN and Odyssey, we're content creators for the newspapers locally here as well. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Good morning, Jay. I'm doing well. Now, I just want to say, I knew the moment that I saw Rihanna do what she did, that was what she was doing. I just had to think about it, and I had time to think about it until I came in the next morning. You remember how I was reticent to actually say what I said?
Yeah.
But I knew I saw what I saw, and I'm not following anything on Twitter or any of that stuff. And then of course, we started talking about this yesterday, and then the next thing you know, you start seeing all the same. You see tweets from people that had seen the same thing that I had seen, and they started talking about, stay classy. Come on, do we really need to do this?
Yeah.
And that was my point. My point was, I don't know what that was. I don't know why she did that. I understand she was announcing she was having another baby. Good for her. I'm happy for her and her boyfriend, whatever. All that stuff doesn't matter. But, the whole scratch and sniff thing was, ridiculous. So, yeah. I know that, I'm 61 years old. I get it. This is this new thing, I guess. I'm not really sure. But you're dealing with 120 million viewers on Fox, and you'd like to think that you want to go out there, you want to do a great performance, you want to capture everybody's imagination, and I thought that the presentation was insane. I mean, insane to a point where it was interesting to watch, but man, the moment I saw that, I was like, enough already. I don't need
so
this.
Mad at myself that I had missed it and looked down at that moment, or who the hell knows what I was doing. I didn't even see it live, and I was sitting there watching it. So when you said that, I was like, what?
Yeah,
it could have been mistaken, but yeah, it ended up being a big deal, man.
Yeah.
And Al Dukes is getting quoted all over the place. His tweet goes, Sports Talk Radio. More people want to talk about Rihanna sniffing her fingers as opposed to the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
which is true. I mean, that's what happened yesterday.
You know what? I wanted to open up this morning with a bing bong, because the Knicks own basketball once again here in New York as the Nets go into oblivion, and our guys from Villanova are basically taking over basketball here in New York, and it was great to watch that last night. But I guess, the scratch and sniff thing seems to be going across all platforms, whether it be sports or entertainment or anything else.
Yeah, well, of course we will hear about the Knicks and talk about the Knicks, and CeeLo's going to have all of that, and it was a fun night, and finally being able to beat the Nets, and Hart and Brunson, as you mentioned, were great. We don't have to talk about the scratch and sniff again. I do think, though, that something that was very interesting is another Jets hire that happened yesterday, and what that means. Now, Todd Downing, you might have remembered his name because he was in the news for a negative thing during the season when he ended up getting pulled over and arrested for a DUI after coming off the team plane with the Tennessee Titans. And that is still something that I'm sure has to be legislated out, sort of like we saw with Zach Scott, the old Mets general manager, that he ended up, those charges were dropped, so I'm sure that there is stuff still going on there legally, but he was in the news, and then he wasn't with the Titans any longer, and now he is hired by the Jets as the passing game coordinator, but as just like all of these scrap heap guys, all the scrap heap coaches, the incestuous scrap heap guys, they've got a history. And their history means a lot into what the future of the organization that they just joined may be. Nathaniel Hackett, history with Aaron Rodgers. Todd Downing, history with Derek Carr.
Yes, for 2 years, as a matter of fact. And by the way, Nate Burleson, I believe, played with Todd Downing and knows him. And, speaking the last couple of years about him and their success down there in Tennessee. He said he was a great coach. He made an unfortunate mistake, and thankfully nobody got hurt.
Right.
He's paid a deep price with that, losing a job, and then fortunately enough for him, he was able to secure another job. This is another valued, experienced coach on the offensive side of the ball for the Jets, which is a really good thing, no matter who their quarterback is. Now, the interesting thing here is I really thought that since the Saints, were so aggressive trying to acquire Derek Carr from the Raiders, that maybe something was going to happen there, and that the Raiders would have received some sort of compensation from the Saints. Now, that still could happen technically, because today is the 14th, obviously, Valentine's Day.
That's right. Happy Valentine's Day, Boomer.
They have to release him, Derek Carr, from the Raiders by tomorrow, or they have to give him a $40 million guarantee. So that's not going to happen. They'll release him unless they're still trying to work out a trade, or maybe New Orleans is still trying to negotiate with Derek Carr. I doubt that is happening. I think that Derek Carr's agent, if he's worth anything, probably has spoken to a couple people off the record or via some other sort of vehicle that there are teams that are extremely interested and are extremely panicking right now and want to get an opportunity to try to sign this young man. So I would think that the opportunity for the Jets to at least talk to Derek Carr is going to be there, and depending on how aggressive they are, maybe he comes here. But again, so his personality, for me, fits the Carolina Panthers and my buddy Frank Reich, who hired Josh McCown as his quarterback coach this past week.
Oh, yeah, these are extreme Jesus guys. All those guys are big Jesus guys. And so Josh McCown, of course, we know. Frank.
Oh, come on.
Well, they are. They're huge. I'm not judging one way or another, but they're huge Jesus guys, and the Jesus guys tend to congregate with one another. They're the Jesus magnet, and they come together. So if I'm Derek Carr, then I'm saying, all right, what's the better landing spot? I'll be like, I got a couple of big Jesus guys here in Carolina. I'm not going up to New York with all those heathens. I mean, I don't want to. You kidding me?
I mean, come on.
That's what he's probably saying.
You'd be like, the quarterback room's going to be like a Bible study? Come on.
May be. No, I mean, it kind of was back in Philadelphia with Carson Wentz and Nick Foles and Frank and all those guys. They won a Super Bowl.
Yes, they did. Yes,
so
they did.
That's probably what Frank's telling them. Be like, listen, we'll get this thing back together.
Well,
I'm not sure
what the Panthers are doing, because I haven't spoken to Frank literally in a week. He's been so busy trying to hire staff and everything else. I have no idea what they're doing. But, you try to read the tea leaves. Everything I read out of Carolina tells me that they want to draft a kid, and they may, trade up to go get one. I'm not sure. But it also sounds like, every coach wants a guy that they believe that they can win with. And, I know that, there's this whole idea about mercenary quarterbacks. I don't believe Derek Carr is a mercenary quarterback. I believe he's somebody's answer for the next 5 years. You know how Denver really wanted a quarterback? They had to have one because they hadn't had one since Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
So what they did is they went out and they traded for Russell Wilson, and they gave him an ungodly contract because they were so desperate for a veteran presence at quarterback, and now they gotta pay Sean Payton to clean it up for him. So I mean, there's one of these teams out there, whether it be the Jets, whether it be the Saints, the Panthers. It could be, I don't know, some team that we're not even thinking about is going to go all in for Derek Carr. I'm just not sure which one it is, but I will say that both Carolina and the Jets seem to have the right coaching kind of staff to fit Derek Carr within their system. So that's what it seems like to me. And I would also say the same thing about the Saints, even though he basically has said, I'm not accepting whatever you're offering me yet because I want to get to free agency and find out what's out there for me. Now, the other thing with him, free agency itself doesn't start until March, okay? Mm-hmm. However, for Derek Carr, the moment that he is released by the Raiders, he is allowed to become a free agent immediately, so he can start negotiating with these teams starting the moment that he is cut from the Raiders. He doesn't have to wait until March 15th.
Oh, really?
No, I
didn't know that.
Yeah, because of this quirky rule and the way that this contract is written and all this other stuff, he becomes an unfettered free agent immediately and can start negotiating immediately. So it's going to be fast and furious. And I if I were the Jets, I don't know when Aaron Rodgers is getting out of this box.
I think it's going to be like the end of this week. I think he started right after the Super Bowl, and he's going to be in there 4 days. So that means he'll be out around Friday.
So you see.
Just think about what you just said, by the way.
I know that. I know.
He's doing McAfee today, so he did not get in the box
he's out
yet.
of the box.
CeeLo says that he's doing McAfee today. He did not go in the box yet.
Oh, okay. All
so
right.
he's not in the box yet?
Not in the box yet.
So if he's not in the box yet, and we got to wait until he comes out of the box, then I think, if you're the Jets, you can't sit around waiting to see what he feels like when he comes out of the box. Now, personally, I would like to see Aaron Rodgers finish his career in Green Bay. Mm-hmm. That's what I would like to see.
You wouldn't want him here?
My second feeling is that he's going to end up in Vegas.
Okay. You wouldn't want him here?
I just don't.
Why did you say personally you want? I mean, I would want him here. It would be great.
It would be great for no. I mean, I'm just saying, like, as a former NFL player,
okay,
who once thought that the grass would be greener somewhere else and found out it to be very different.
Okay,
I would say to him that he has a terrific coach in Matt LaFleur. I think. I don't know.
But does he have the roster that he wants?
I think the roster's building. I think that they are a team that is smartly drafted, and they are building, trying to fix their defense, and their defense is getting better. And I don't know. I just kind of feel like, I mean, they'll dabble in free agency to a certain extent, but, Aaron's got a huge number against their salary cap, and that really precludes them from going out and being uber aggressive and trying to, like, say, acquire a T. Higgins, if you will.
Sure. Take a look at some of these guys, too, over the next few weeks. The guys that are Aaron Rodgers guys, David Bakhtiari, Randall Cobb, Mercedes Lewis, Alan Lazard, guys that are either free agents or towards the end of their career.
Yeah, they may end up getting booted.
And if those guys come back, then that, I think, is a sign that he's coming back. If they either retire or move on or do something else, I would look into that and say that maybe he is going to either retire or do something else.
Would the Jets make a trade and then try to sign Bakhtiari?
I mean, this is all the. Yes, I think that they would because Nathaniel Hackett, they went out and got Nathaniel Hackett not only because of his experience, but directly because of his relationship with Aaron Rodgers, just like the Broncos did. And I also think now they're bringing in Todd Downing because he's available and he's got a relationship with Derek Carr. I mean, I really think that these moves are motivated by getting that big quarterback in here, so I would not be surprised at all if they went and got Bakhtiari and Cobb and Lazard. Bring them all in.
But I also say that if they are holding on to Zach Wilson, and you're going after Derek Carr, then
that's bye-bye Zach Wilson.
Yeah. I mean, Derek Carr's not coming here, I don't believe, for like 2 years. I mean, it's going to be like a 3 to 4 year deal. And maybe the Saints have offered him like a 3-year, think about this, $120 million. That would be $40 million a year because that's what he's guaranteed for by the Raiders. So that's where his starting number is, which is insane when you think about it. Now, let me ask you this question. Talk about quarterbacks and their contracts. We just had a quarterback who may have had one of the greatest Super Bowls of all time and lost the game.
Yep.
And I don't think there's any question that everybody understands just how Jalen Hurts is thrust himself into being a top 10 quarterback in the league right now. And he has come out of nowhere. He's a second-round draft choice. This is the end of his third year. He's got one more year left on his contract. There's no way, especially with the way that he plays, that he is going to be stepping on that field next year under the contract terms that he's presently under. So he is going to receive a new contract. So if Daniel Jones is going to be getting, I don't know, somewhere between $30 and $35 million a year for his contract, how much is Jalen Hurts worth on the open market, and what are the Eagles going to have to pay him?
Yeah, I mean, I think that $40 million is where it's going to start for him. Yeah, I mean, at 40 to 45 at this point is where it's going to start for him. What's curious to me, though, is these massive roster that Howie Roseman built. So Jalen Hurts actually could play. Now, I know what you're going to say, and there's so many examples of it where guys get contracts before that last year because everybody else is getting the contracts. We saw it with all the wide receivers.
You're going to say it again with T. Higgins this year.
Right, so that happens a lot. But Jalen Hurts technically still could play one more year.
No way.
I said technically.
Yeah, well, technically it doesn't mean anything.
All right, so they just went to the Super Bowl, though.
Yeah,
with this roster.
Right.
So is there any way that Howie Roseman says, we were 3 points away from winning this Super Bowl. If we come back with this same team because you're not getting paid, maybe we can win the Super Bowl. But if you do, now I got to cut this guy, that guy, this guy, and this guy.
This is the NFL, man. This young man If there's ever a guy in the NFL that deserves a major contract, it's Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles. And I don't care what anybody says. I mean, what he's been through, what he's had to prove, and he's had to go out there and he's had to do it on the field. And that performance in the Super Bowl, I went back and looked at it.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, he had one, really, they ended up scoring a touchdown, but he had Devontae Smith down the left sideline. He underthrew him a little bit. If he doesn't underthrow him, it's going to be an easy walk-in touchdown. But, I mean, he basically showed everybody that what he's worth. I mean, I don't,
And if they had won the game, the star power would have been so much greater. But I still think he's getting a ton of respect. But just think about it. If he had won that game, was a Super Bowl MVP, I mean, we'd be talking about him. Where is he in the league? Is he a top 3 guy? Is he a top 2 guy? I mean,
right.
all those conversations would have been happening.
He deserves to be, right there with the top 5 guys in the league in terms of their salaries. I mean, I know he's not Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that, and plus you got to remember, Philadelphia has just been burned or coming out of being burned by the Carson Wentz contract. But this kid is different than Carson. This kid is the unquestioned leader. He's got the respect of the locker room. He plays a brand of football that I think if you played with him, you'd love every minute of playing with him. So he deserves a big, big deal. And when you compare it to like Daniel Jones is going to get a big deal. It's got to be bigger than that.
Yeah, of course.
It has to be bigger than that.
Obviously. Come on.
Or his agent isn't worth anything.
All right, it is Boomer and Gio on the Fan and CBS Sports Network. CeeLo with us today. Jerry is with Rutgers. I'll tell you all about the Knicks and the Nets and everything else that's going on in sports in just a couple of minutes. Boomer's got something for you. We'll come right back on this Tuesday morning right after this.